Hi, this is Jolynn from Wild Pony Eventing, and we're here with Hannah Catalino and your Mustangs. Hi.
Hello. Hi. Great. Thanks so much for having me here. It's so great to be here.
Sure. Can you tell listeners a little bit about your horse background and how you got into Mustangs?
Yeah. So I kind of got started into Mustangs because I stumbled across a YouTube video. I've been training miniature show ponies. I was showing in the Pinto circuit at the time, and I was in high school, and I was just going through YouTube trying to find ideas to teach my pony. And I came across this really amazing video of youth competing in Tennessee with these wild yearlings. And I was fascinated right from the start. I was like, oh my gosh, this is the coolest thing. It's essentially what I was doing with a miniature horse, but with a wild Mustang. So way cooler. And so right away it became a goal and dream of mine to compete in one of these Mustang makeovers. At the time, I didn't really have any interest in doing a ridden makeover. So, my timeline was short. They weren't doing tip challenges. And it just so happened, like within a year, I was living in Texas at the time. They did their first youth makeover in Texas, and it was just like everything aligned. It was like such an amazing experience. So that was in 2012, the Supreme Extreme. So you got to bid on your Mustang ahead of time and pick out which ones you wanted to work with. So for my first Mustang, I was 17.
Okay.
Yeah. And so yeah, like for my first Mustang, I didn't end up getting one. I ended up getting two yearlings, having never seen a Mustang before. And yeah, I mean, from there I was pretty hooked. Yeah, they did really great. I competed, their names are Ace and Harley. Those are my two that kind of got me started and all. And yeah, they did really well. I think there was like over 60 youth that year, and they both placed in the finals. And I mean, it was a labor of love spending all summer with those Mustangs. But I mean, between them and the community of people that I met at the makeover, I mean, it was literally a life-changing experience, because making that decision to do that competition has changed my life. I wouldn't be doing what I'm doing today without having decided to compete in that. So it's kind of crazy.
Yeah. So had you been riding before that, or exclusively doing trick training?
I did a little bit. I kind of dabbled in some reining, but when the opportunity came either to continue pursuing, riding these fancy reining show horses, or doing the Mustangs, I was like, Mustangs, hands down. This is what I want to try out. I still have some love for the reining, but for me personally, it was hard for me to understand how to learn to ride on these Finnish show horses. I know that's a little backwards from some people, but the next year I turned 18 and had to compete in the ridden division, which so happened to be the biggest Mustang makeover ever, which was the Mustang Million. And yeah, so a year ago I was trying to figure out how to do like haunches in on these reining horses, and then here I get this wild Mustang. And for me, like, I know it's probably not how most people work, but for me to start from the ground up and teach that Mustang, okay, this is what you need to do the haunches in. Like for me, that clicked and helped me understand how to ride better. So in a way, like getting that Mustang and going through the process, from scratch, really helped me be a better rider in so many aspects. And she was really amazing. Her name was Satara, and like I was riding her on day 12, which was the first horse I ever started, and she was just an amazing horse, had this great personality. And I did eventually sell her, but she was one that I had seller's remorse on, and she ended up coming back to my herd after being a lesson horse for several years. So she's a really special horse. I think she took really good care of me for not knowing anything that, I was really lucky to end up with her. And so it was really cool. I mean, that was another part that was, again, like the Mustang really was amazing. And then the event itself, I mean, for me to be, this kid that's never done anything, to ride in the same arena as Bobby Kerr and Dan James and Mary Miller Jordan, it just was like, wow, like how many other shows can you do this with, these Mustangs on top of that, so like just the combination of the community and, these incredible horses really just had me hooked. And from there, I lost count of the amount of makeovers and challenges I've done because, those horses really and the community really got me just so involved. But then from there, I was really fortunate. I had 3 really easy Mustangs. I would consider them easy Mustangs. But then I got 3 really difficult ones. And, at the time, it wasn't a good place to be in because, you don't know what you don't know. And it was, definitely a really frustrating spot to be. But in the end, it ended up working out really well because it pushed me to learn new things and find mentors. And so from there, I started interning under some trainers. And I spent, I think it was 5 or 6 months with Marcia Sapp in Tallahassee, which was an amazing experience to get to, get my confidence up. And she has Mustangs and Warm Bloods and Gypsy Vanners and Friesians. And so to get to expose to all these other breeds plus the Mustangs was really just what I needed at the time. And then I also spent some time traveling 8 months with Madison Shambaugh, or also known as Mustang Maddie, who's like totally shaped and influenced my program, especially the Liberty work. I'd always loved the Liberty and tricks, but I didn't know why I did what I did and what made something successful. Like I just had this feeling like, oh, this will work. But thanks to her, I finally had a program that like I knew why certain things worked and some didn't. And so that was definitely also such an inspirational, life-changing decision. And like I wouldn't have had that opportunity had I not been involved with the Mustangs because that's how we met each other. So yeah.
Those are pretty incredible mentors to have.
Yes, I feel very, very fortunate. And it's my Mustangs that helped, make that possible. So I definitely owe it to them for helping me get there.
Yeah. So out of curiosity, those difficult Mustangs, were they the sulfurs?
Yeah. So I've actually, the ones that got me on that journey, I think two were Oregon horses and one was a Divide Basin. My first sulfur actually was incredible. He was super amazing and it got me, his name's Bagheera, and he's one that just got me, like, I just really loved his sensitivity and intelligence. But I've actually worked with more sulfur Mustangs than any other HMA. I think I've worked with 10 now, which the other HMAs are kind of like, I think the next closest number I've worked with 4 Devil's Garden horses, and the rest are kind of scattered. 1 HMA here, 1 HMA here, maybe 2 here. But the sulfurs have definitely become kind of known as the sulfur person, kind of by accident. I just really liked their sensitivity and intelligence, but it's definitely not a combination for everybody. And they definitely need more patient and kind approaches as far as, they just don't handle being pushed really hard initially. And yeah, I actually had the opportunity. A makeover trainer was having some issues with a Mustang in Connecticut, a sulfur Mustang, and they flew me out. And we're actually the trainer wasn't able to stay in the competition, but she did eventually get her adoptable, which at the time she thought she was going to have to return her because she didn't even feel comfortable cleaning this horse's pin while she was in it. And so that mare was really aggressive. But I had spent some time, I think about a year before that in New Zealand. I stayed with the Wilson sisters. So that's Kelly, Amanda, and Vicki Wilson. Vicki Wilson's probably the more well-known. And I actually met them because they did an Idaho makeover. So
wow.
kind of crazy, you know, again, interconnected through the Mustangs. But they were doing this workshop where you could learn to gentle wild stallions. And it was their wild stallions, which are equal to, you know, our Mustangs. So they're called Kaimanawas. But they kind of became famous in New Zealand because they used to just slaughter any wild horse that wasn't adopted. So
Wow.
they kind of started this whole, they had a TV show in New Zealand, and Kelly, the middle sister, became best-selling author, telling their story of how, you know, they helped save these wild horses. And since their involvement, there hasn't been any horses sent to slaughter.
Wow.
So it's kind of crazy, you know, how much of an impact they had. So they're such an inspiring family. So I jumped on the opportunity to go and learn, you know, I wanted to learn about, you know, stallions because I was becoming a clinician, and I never knew exactly what was coming to my clinics. And I was like, well, this would be a really cool opportunity. So I had the most amazing time spending 6 weeks there learning with them. But then they were so impressed with the training techniques that I ended up co-teaching the workshop with them, which was like,
Nice.
yeah, it was kind of a really humbling and incredible experience because after that, I started teaching like shortly after. So like literally right after, somebody saw that I was flying to New Zealand and they were like, hey, while you're on this side of the world, would you come to Australia and teach a Liberty clinic here? And I was like, oh no, I'm sure I won't be any good. I've never taught a clinic before. I'm sure we could find someone who's better. And they're like, no, I'm sure you'll do fine. And I was like, oh my gosh, well, it'd be kind of silly to pass up the opportunity. So thankfully I said yes. And yeah, I mean, it just really helped me between going to New Zealand and kind of co-teaching at that workshop and then teaching in Australia. I just really realized that I really love teaching. And I kind of feel like I'm able to make a more long-term impact. I can only, you know, help so many horses as me as one individual. But if I can help people, you know, communicate with their horses better or teach people how to gentle wild Mustangs, then that's, you know, long-term a bigger impact, I feel like, than just, you know, how many horses can I train? How many horses can I adopt out? So that's kind of was a huge shift for me personally.
Right. And when was this? What year?
I think I went to New Zealand in 2018.
Okay. And
Yeah.
you've been regularly doing clinics since that time, haven't you?
I have, yeah, kind of all over the place. I also ended up making a really amazing connection in Germany. So I help, I've competed in the Mustang makeover in Germany. I'm the only non-European to compete in their Mustang competition. I ended up selling a Mustang over there and they imported one of my makeover horses. And it was so amazing to get to go and ride her, you know, after training her in the US, ride her over in Germany. And then they asked me to present her in front of 5,000 people. I only had 1 week to get her ready for it. And we were bareback and bridleless, and she handled the crowd so amazingly. It was a really amazing experience. And I thought, man, this is such an incredible event to go all the way to Europe and see how much these people love and admire the Mustangs. So I got really involved with their program. So in 2019, I competed. And then every year except for last year, I've judged. So I've been involved quite a bit. I've helped import Mustangs as well. So these Mustangs, most of them are somewhat handleable, but for their makeovers, the Mustangs are just gentled enough to get on the cargo plane. You couldn't really touch them, but they know how to lead to get on the cargo plane, and then they fly. And so during COVID, they weren't letting like the German grooms come over and land in the US. So they reached out to me, even though like my schedule was kind of chaotic at the time. They were like, hey, we've got these Mustangs. We really need them to ship. We can't keep postponing it. And I was like, yeah, I mean, whatever it takes to help, 20 Mustangs or whatever it was, fly over. And so went ahead and got some horses over there, and it was kind of a back and forth trip. But I mean, even that's been kind of wild. Never pictured that I'd be helping ship Mustangs over to Germany as well. But I mean, it's so cool. I mean, they get generally, I mean, I know initially people were like, oh, they eat horses in Europe and things like that. And people didn't have really good things to say about the program. But these horses are getting such amazing homes. I mean, just the import cost alone is so high. And so to see a different market on Mustangs and, seeing people value them that much is just really neat. And I mean, a lot of people in Europe don't just get horses to have them. They usually, the horse that they buy is like their entire life. And, it's very expensive having horses over there. So, I mean, a lot of these horses get really good homes. So it's been really neat about, to get involved and help so many Mustangs, and be a part of such a cool organization. I mean, they do really amazing work. I think they're getting on average, 80 to 100 horses a year.
Wow.
And I think they had been doing it a couple of years even before I was involved, which, I mean, that's huge. So,
yeah. I didn't realize there was that many.
Yeah, they do private adoptions, but then they also do like a handful of makeover horses. And those makeover horses are the ones that help gain attention of the Mustangs, but then they also have Mustangs that are sold privately. Once they're titled, obviously they have to be titled to ship.
Right.
Yeah.
Tell us about your personal Mustangs.
So my personal Mustangs, it's an ever changing number.
Okay.
So Rosette was actually one of my most difficult Mustangs initially. So she was one that in the beginning, she's from Divide Basin, Wyoming, and she's this beautiful, sassy, red Overo Pinto mare. And yeah, she was a really difficult one for me initially because she was so flighty. I think she was rounded up 4 months before I got her. And she's one of those horses that she just doesn't enjoy to be touched. So like I could touch her the first day. And then after that, she's like, meh, I did the whole touching. I wasn't into it. You never have to touch me again. And I was just like so frustrated because it was like every day starting over. And I can't really say what exactly was the turning point for her. It was kind of like the cheesy horse movies, which I hate watching horse movies, but yeah, she came out of the pasture. Like I could kind of handle her, but there was still like something was not clicking. Like, I mean, I struggled leading her through like a 12-foot gate. And at the time, like I'd done a few makeovers. I was like, I thought I knew what I was doing. And she was like, oh, nope, I've got a lot more to teach you. But yeah, so like, I mean, she was somewhat handleable, but like I still couldn't get her feet trimmed or anything like that. So anyways, I had her turned out and she came out of the pasture non-weight bearing on one of her legs, and I was heartbroken. I thought she broke her leg. And we get her in the trailer, which she's, again, she had a hard time going like over a rut or a gate. But she was in so much pain that she didn't care to get on the trailer. When we took her to the vet, thankfully it was just a hoof abscess. And
oh, wow.
I don't know, like something in taking her to the vet, and they sedate her because they can't touch her. Like she trusted me kind of, but definitely didn't trust anybody else. So they sedate her, they realize it's a hoof abscess, and they wrap her back foot, and they're like, yeah, that's gonna have to be changed every day and all this stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like I can only touch her front feet. I've never picked up her back feet. But like from that day on, I brought her home and she was a totally different horse. Like she suddenly went from the most unwilling horse. Like she didn't want to do anything for me. I was actually about to, somebody else had a horse from the same roundup and herd that was very similar. But she was having really good success. And I thought, I mean, I'm a big believer in like some horses just don't click with certain people. And I was having the feeling that, maybe I'm just not her person. So this other person that had her sister, I was actually going to give her to this lady. And, because we had stayed in contact comparing notes, but then all of a sudden, like a few weeks before that arrangement was going to be made, she suddenly made that 180 turn and was willing to trust me and has become the most willing horse. Like, I've never taught her to trailer load, and she's the best trailer loader. She'll get on to anything. I've ridden her, in some crazy environments, and, I totally trust her now. And she's become an amazing, trail partner, and she's on my Liberty team. So, and this is a horse that I was like, I don't think I'll ever ride this one, but I always loved her. Like, and she's still not that great, like, into being touched. It's a little bit of just who she is. She's kind of cat-like, that. But, like, I don't know, we just have this understanding and mutual respect for one another. She taught me a lot, and, I really like to use her as an example of a horse, because, that was 10 months of working with her. Up until she got that hoof abscess. And even then, she wasn't exactly straightforward. Like, she finally was willing to try things, which was a huge step forward. I do think a little bit is they have to make that decision on their own. Like, we can be there to help support them and encourage them. But with her, she really, like, wasn't ready to make that decision, and suddenly, with that hoof abscess, she just made a 180 turn. So she's definitely, my heart horse, never going to be sold, with me forever. And then I have Bagheera, who was my first sulfur Mustang, and I got him, I think he was a yearling when I got him. She was a 2-year-old, which she was my first non-makeover horse, which I was so glad not to have a time frame with her, because obviously you couldn't put her on one. And Bagheera was one that was like semi-gentled. He just, something about him just, he's gorgeous horse anyways, but I just knew in my heart, like, I need this horse in my life. And like, I fortunately was able to be his adopter. And he's just, even in that decision of, taking the leap of adopting a sulfur, having never really even worked with them, I'd heard their reputation. I was like, oh my gosh, am I crazy? And thankfully I took the leap anyway. And he's really started me on this whole, journey within the Mustang community of getting involved with the sulfur Mustangs. And I've tipped quite a few of them. I personally like them for me. I don't really like tipping them. The crazy thing is, people ask me what's the hardest HMA and what's the easiest HMA. And like, some of my easiest Mustangs have been sulfur horses. And I like Little Awahi too. Little Awahi has been good for tip horses, but then I have a friend that gets one that's really difficult. So it's really hard to say which ones are the best. But then I've also had really challenging sulfurs. I would say probably about a third of them have been super easy, like a youth could have gentled them. Another third are kind of intermediate, they're a little sensitive, need you to take your time with them. And then another third have been pretty challenging. So that's kind of been my statistics. I haven't worked enough of the other HMAs at that same level of like 10 in an HMA to kind of have a comparison. But that's kind of been my experience. But yeah, he's a super amazing guy. At first he's really tiny. I like the little ones. My mare is only 14 hands, so I call her like my Indian paint pony. And then Bagheera is 13 too, but what he lacks in size, he makes up in personality. He just starts to, pick himself up and collect himself and, kind of prance as we go into the arena because he wants to show off. He just has, this such a character about him. And he really impressed me, just even as a baby, like we have a lot of cats at my place, and there would be cats going between his legs, and he put his head down and just let the cat touch his nose. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like most geldings want to play and stomp on and chase things. And here he's being so sweet. He loves playing with things. Like I can play fetch with him like a dog. Like he loves picking sticks up and chasing things like that. He just has such a fun personality. So yeah, I was really fascinated with the sulfurs because of him, and have since, like I said, I did tip out quite a few sulfurs, and one of them ended up coming back to me just recently, and her name's Amadora. So she was one that I kind of, if I had been in a different place at the time, I would have tried to adopt her myself, but I did end up deciding to adopt her out. So I was super thrilled to have the opportunity to work with her. She's the one that I would kind of put in the intermediate category. She hasn't been, like, she's super kind. I mean, her name, Amadora, means, lover, or, to love. So like, she just had this personality that captivated me from the beginning, but she's had some, like trouble being started under saddle. So I was really happy to have the opportunity to have her back and, put her with my team. And so far she's been doing really great. So I'm really excited to see what I'll get to do with her.
Are we at 3 now?
Yeah, I think that's 3. And just recently I got another sulfur. He was actually born in captivity, which has been interesting. So he's not branded. He's been handled at birth, and I thought it'd be interesting to kind of compare, since I've kind of become known as one of the sulfur trainers. So
for sure.
I wanted to compare, like, oh well, how is it when they're in captivity and all of that. And I really haven't had a lot of time to work with him because I've temporarily moved from Montana to Mississippi. But I mean, I've really been enjoying working with him too. He's a really, has all the characteristics, but he doesn't have like, the stranger danger. But then you have, I've been balancing out with his training, the whole, you have to kind of pay attention to people, which is one thing I do love about the Mustangs is, a lot of people ask me why Mustangs, and I mean, I feel like they're just so aware of everything, and that can be a bad thing. They are aware, but like on this, good and refreshing note, like their awareness is so, incredible. And so like, kind of with him, he's been around people. So, kind of like telling him like, hey, pay attention to what I'm doing. So that's been kind of interesting, playing with him, but he's still, his name is Legendario, or Ario for short. And then I have Satara came back to me. So my Mustang Million Mustang, I think she's my only makeover Mustang that I end up keeping, which is, I don't know how many makeovers I can keep doing. And I don't know that I can tip very many more and do the tip challenges because I get so attached to them and it's so hard. And, I end up keeping more of the more sensitive ones, or the ones that, do have more difficulty, where I usually do let my best ones go because I can trust them to leave. So yeah, but I really, really missed her. So I was really thankful for the opportunity to get her back. So Satara, I have a burro. Actually, I have 2 burros now. I love the burros. It took me like 7 years of being in Mustangs to finally get a burro. And I was like, oh my gosh, my life like has been so missing something. So that was really, really amazing. So in 2021, I got a Mustang for the Idaho tip challenge, a burro for the Idaho tip challenge. And that's Cody. And he's like a black with a white nose and white around his eyes. He's he was 6 when I got him, because I wanted an older burro that could maybe drive at the tip challenge. So I actually, he does the liberty, he sits, he lays down, he gets on a pedestal. He drives a cart. After the event, I started him under saddle. I've taken him on trail rides. Like, he's a really great little burro. He knows how to pack.
That's so cool.
Yeah, I love the burros. They're so much fun. They have a really, I don't know, I feel like they also have a bad reputation. Maybe I'm just drawn to the ones that are, said to be really challenging or something. But I love the burros. They actually do really great with the liberty. Also a big positive reinforcement trainer anyway, so they respond really great to that. So yeah, and this last year, I was a little crazy and did, like, I think I picked up 9 challenge horses. Some ridden, most of them were tip challenges. And one of the burros I ended up keeping as well, which was so hard. I wanted to keep both burros, but I'm like, oh my gosh, I already have another burro. So thankfully the other one found a really awesome home. All of them were champion and reserve champion, only reserve champion from competing against my other burro. So I really love the burros. They all did liberty, and they were just super awesome.
Cool.
Yeah. And the second burro is Alec, or Alexander the Great.
I love it.
Yeah, he's such a ham. He was, I have a video somewhere. I had a student helping me from Germany work with all these Mustangs that I was crazy enough to take on this summer. But she was grooming one burro. She was grooming Alec, and then she went to the other burro, and Alec just starts braying at her to come back and love on him. So he's a total ham. He's really cool. I just love them all. I love all the Mustangs, and then I love all my burros. It's so hard.
So is your count 5 horses and 2 burros? Am I correct?
I'm trying to think. I have them all on the photos. I also have I have a Devil's Garden Mustang. He was really cool. So I ended up, it was that year, I think it was 2020, when they had so many leftover, like, older horses. They were adopting them. The U.S. Forest Service was adopting them for $1, and they were also shipping them to Montana without charging. So it was like, oh, this is a little hard to say no to. Yeah, it's like, oh, this is a little dangerous. And I love the older ones. After my time in New Zealand, I liked, the idea of, especially, like, they weren't stallions anymore, obviously. The BLM and Forest Service gilded them. But they have this reputation for being, they were stallions for, a long time. So I ended up taking, and I got the shorter horses because most people want size. So I got like a 14 hand, 16-year-old bay roan, and then a 18-year-old blue roan, who ended up only being like 13 2 hands, but super stocky and thick. Like, everybody thinks in their photos that they're huge because they're just so drafty, but they're like little tiny draft horses. So Tino, the blue roan, he ended up staying with me, and he's just the coolest guy. Like, at first, my friend, they arrived at my friend's place, and my friend's like, oh my gosh, you have the Psycho Mustang. And I'm like, oh gosh, why did I have to do this to myself? Like, I like helping the challenging ones, but at the same time, it feels like I just, help one challenging one, finally find their place, and then another one ends up with me. But he ended up being, like, once I got my hands on him, he totally melted. I mean, like, 2 weeks into training, I had a 16-year-old student learning at my place, and she was the one to saddle him for the first time, and it was at Liberty and uneventful. Then I had students working with him throughout the summer, and in 6 months we had him started under saddle. I mean, we weren't pushing any timelines, especially with the older horses. I like to ease them into a routine, and ones that have been a stallion for a while. I just learned in my time in New Zealand working with the stallions there that you really can't push them the same way that I feel like you can, push some of the younger horses. So they did really well to just kind of being integrated into the program and kind of letting them ease into things. And then I had all these students, so they got used to a lot of different people. So that was really great experience for everybody. And yeah, first touches and first rides are always a really amazing experience and unforgettable. But to get on the back of an 18-year-old horse that had been wild and didn't need anybody else his whole entire life. And this horse, the Roans are so cool because they have their story written all over them. He's got all these battle scars. He's got a ripped nostril. Some people think he's a little unsightly, but I think he has a lot of character. I don't know. I think he's like the coolest horse. So yeah, he ended up being one that did get adopted out, but then came back to me for, personal circumstances of the adopter, which I always welcome any of my Mustangs back. But with him being older, I definitely got leery of trying to adopt him out again. But honestly, he probably wouldn't have left had I not had an adopter lined up, just because I just really enjoyed him so much. So yeah, I think that's most of my herd. Oh no, I also have a Mustang named Shine. She's a buckskin from Silver King, Nevada. And she was a tip challenge Mustang as well. So she was reserve champion and champion of her freestyle. And she's kind of a neat Mustang that I like to use as an example for training purposes, as far as as much as I love positive reinforcement, she was a Mustang that it took her like 3 weeks to learn how to eat out of a hay bag, because she was so offended that every time she would touch the hay, the bag would move. So there was no way I could get her to take cookies in the 90 days that I had her. She was just so offended if I tried to shove food in her face. So I was like, oh my gosh, how am I, you can get them to do things without the food, but to get them in 90 days to perform in arena, it was a little stressful that she, I couldn't find other ways to motivate her. But she was one, she performed flawlessly. She had a rear and Spanish walk and lay down and sit over barrels, Liberty circles. So, she was able to do it all without positive reinforcement. And thankfully now she does accept positive reinforcement. That's helped her training a lot. And so she's one that, she's been really amazing. She's a very versatile Mustang. In 2020, I had 4 of my Mustangs. There was this really amazing family that wanted to do a stagecoach drive across Montana. And they thought it would be really amazing to use Mustangs for this drive. And they needed 12 horses to switch out their teams. And I was planning on being traveling for 6 months. And I was like, well, I always kind of feel bad, that my horses, trainer horse problems is everybody else gets worked and not your own horses. So I was like, well, maybe this will be a really cool opportunity for them and then help promote the Mustang. I think driving is a really a lost art because, it's just becoming pretty rare. So I've always admired, that discipline and area of horsemanship. So I was like, here, I have 4 horses. If they work out, great. If not, no problem. And then all 4 of them ended up making the team. That was really cool. So Shine was one of them. Shine, Bagheera, and Rosette. And then I had another sulfur at the time who ended up eventually placing in a home. But those 4 ended up being part of the team. So that was really, really exciting and very cool. And Shine and Rosette ended up, they did on their, as they crossed the border, they did a team of 6. So Rosette and Shine ended up being the ones that they trusted the most, because the higher amount of horses you have, the less control you have of those 2. So they trusted them enough to be the ones to drive. So that was really cool. And just a neat opportunity to give my horses, you know, a different type of exposure, very different training, obviously. But yeah, they did really well, and I was really proud of them.
Had you done any driving with them prior, or did they learn completely from these people?
Yeah, they actually learned completely from them. Like I had taught like my minis to drive and things like that, but I hadn't really, and I had taken some classes when I was in college and harness and had interest in it. And at the time thought maybe it was something I'd want to do. And I taught my burro to drive, but I haven't really driven my Mustangs personally. It was just kind of one of those things that, you know, I was going to be gone, and it was like in the same time period that they wanted to train them up for this. Yeah, it just ended up being a really cool experience. And I thought it would be great exposure and great ambassadorship in a different discipline, which, you know, I'm all about, you know, trying to help promote Mustangs and in different areas as well. So
Yeah, cool.
yeah.
So you mentioned timelines. Can you talk a little bit about how you approach gentling and how much of a difference there is, like when you have a tip timeline versus, you know, the horse's timeline?
Yeah. So, I mean, on average, I feel like I can get most of them gentled in like a 4 to 6 week time period. You know, that obviously varies. I mean, some are gentle in like a few days, and some are gentle in like a couple of weeks. I've mentored a youth gentling her first yearling, and we had him tip trained in 2 weeks with me and her working together. You know, that was a really fun experience to help you know, that dream come true for somebody else. I think that's also one of the most rewarding things is, you know, it's great when it's your first touch, but when it's somebody else's, you know, first time, that's really special too. But I mean, I've also had probably my very most difficult Mustang I actually had this summer. I had picked up a virtual makeover horse, which it had been so hard to find one in general. And I picked him up from Boise, and sight unseen, they said this one met the criteria. So I'm like, and typically like I like picking them just because I feel like I can kind of gauge from the photo or video or in person how that horse is. But like it was literally the only horse I had the option to compete with. So I was like, okay, we'll be in Boise and we'll pick him up. I have never not like almost like wanted to unload him right there and return him the moment he got on my trailer. And this horse literally ran into my trailer. We closed the door, and he just was throwing himself at the door trying to get out. And I'm like, oh, like, what did I get myself into again? And they're like, oh yeah, it's you, Hannah, you've got this. And I'm like, okay, I'll give him a go. Yeah, my 7-day progress report was I can clean his pin and feel like I don't have to, like, I can turn my back on him and he's not going to attack me. So he was definitely really challenging, which the weird thing is like his day one was normal, just like anybody else's. And I gentle my horses at Liberty. So I try to teach them to, you know, not all of them are brave enough to come off the wall. Some horses, I call like the fence, like their security blanket, like they feel comfortable on the wall. But ideally I like them to come like off the wall because they're less likely, in my opinion, to react because they have options of flight. So, you know, to me, it's a little bit more iffy if you have them against a fence because, you know, their options are more limited. So I do try to, you know, get them off the fence. So I had him in the middle of the pen. And I have this rule, like I don't personally touch mine with my hand until I can touch them all over with the sticks, the flag, and the tarp. Because I feel like by that time I've seen the reactions enough that when it's my hand there, it's hopefully a little less scary than a tarp. But it just gives me a chance, like safety is a big component of like just for me, but like also my students when I'm teaching. So like with this horse, I was so glad that was a rule because he was, you know, passing all my stuff with flying colors. I was really impressed with him. And he was a 10-year-old as well, because I like a challenge in the older horses and all of that, which probably isn't the best one for a makeover, but but anyways, I had him engaging, like trying to engage with the flag, because I wanted to start touching him with the flag, and just out of nowhere, he just reared up and attacked it. Like there was no warning in his face or anything. And again, like I had him in the middle, so he had options. Like he could go into flight. He didn't even like pin his ears or like, you know, swish his tail. Like there was very no warning whatsoever. And I was just like, wow, I'm glad that wasn't my hand. So long story short, like I did get some second opinions and things like that. And, you know, I mean, he was like trainable, like I could teach him things at Liberty without touching him. But like personally, I just don't want to be touching a horse that I have to be that on guard on. And he just didn't, like the whole, like I think I had him way past the makeover time. He was still really snorty anytime like you're feeding him, and he would like kick at his hay as you'd throw his hay in. And like, you know, going back to the idea, like I think they have to make that decision to want to like try to move on. And like even like trying to give this horse as much like, you know, options as possible. I also worked with an animal communicator who's worked with a lot of Mustang trainers and a lot of Mustangs. And he said, I've only told one other person to send a horse back, and I think you should send this horse back. He wants nothing to do with you guys. And I was like, okay, like, you know, I mean, I still gave him some time afterward, but thankfully we ended up getting him into a sanctuary. You know, he was one, and I've never, like, even my most difficult Mustangs, like I've been able to saddle and lead and handle. And this guy, like we haltered and we're kind of touching, but he was, you know, very questionable. And he was from 4 Mile, Idaho. And yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm glad he ended up with me. So like he didn't end up in a bad place or hurting somebody or, you know, something like that. We were able to get him where he needed to be. So I don't consider that like a failure or anything like that. And yeah, I'm just glad that, you know, that still ended up working out. I mean, it was disappointing after trying so hard to get involved in the virtual makeover that, you know, we had to drop out, but, you know, obviously the horse comes first, and, you know, safety is also priority. But I mean, with that said, I also had a horse that was listed as a 9-year-old from 4 Mile. And obviously I got the one first, and I was like, oh gosh, what am I getting myself into? But I'm like, okay, I'm not going to judge him from his HMA because that's what everybody does. And thankfully, I mean, this horse turned out incredible. He won his tip challenge. I had him for a tip challenge. Yeah, I mean, he was, you know, totally night and day difference. But on the safe side, I had a newspaper following our progress, and I'm like, oh gosh, based on this first one, the newspaper might not have a very interesting story. So, you know, actually thanks to that difficult one, I actually got 2 for the challenge. I got a yearling from 4 Mile as well. And just in case the 9-year-old turned out to be challenging as well, I just wanted there to be something for the story. So yeah, and he ended up, I think he was gentled in 2 weeks and living out in the pasture and electric fence with my herd. And he was super easygoing. So I mean, again, like I had those, you know, 3 very different 4 Mile Mustangs. And, you know, so I don't know. I don't think you could judge based on the HMA. I really am a big believer in judging the individual, not necessarily, the HMA. Yeah. Oh, I forgot. I don't know how I forgot her. I also have a BLM mule. And yeah, her name's Wyona. And yeah, I think she was born in Holding. And yeah, she's really awesome too.
What's Wyona's job?
Right now she's a Liberty mule, so she's actually just learning her liberty circles, and she's super cute and sassy. She like puts her ears back and is like, okay, I'm gonna do my little trot circle. She loves the pedestal, but she's very forward, and she loves obstacles. Like, she's super brave. But like, she'll get on the pedestal and be like, okay, I did it. And it's like, well, no, you gotta wait on the pedestal. And so waiting's a little bit hard for her. Yeah, and I mean, I put saddles on her and pack saddles and things like that. I've sat on her. I haven't started riding her. Just time. I haven't had a chance. I just adopted her last year too. But I mean, the hope is that she'll be riding here soon, when time allows. So yeah, that's another one.
What are you doing in Mississippi?
So I'm actually spending some time with another friend and mentor, Michael Gaskin. So again, met him at a makeover back in 2016. And he's somebody that I just really enjoy, learning from everybody. So he's somebody that I really find a lot of correlation with, like the colt starting and the problem horse type of skills. And then in return, like, I'm helping train his Paso Finos. So that's been a really cool partnership as I'm, working with my Mustangs, and community, I think, is really important. So being around people that inspire you and motivate you is really big. And so the barn here is really amazing. And it's nice to be in the South during the winter time, because if I was in Montana right now, I probably wouldn't be working my horses. Although I have gotten, for whatever reason, Mustangs in January, and yeah, I mean, it's doable. It's just not the most fun.
Yeah. So what's your time commitment in Mississippi?
I'm not sure. I'm thinking I'll probably be here until May or so. But it's still open-ended, undecided.
Okay, but returning to Montana?
Yes. I mean, briefly, I'm planning on traveling quite a bit, probably afterwards. I have clients and friends in Germany that I'll probably spend some time with. I'll probably go to New Zealand for the first time since COVID. COVID shut everything down, which is very exciting, because I was going there like once or twice a year. So it's been kind of strange to not be there for so long. And yeah, I enjoy doing like long distance riding with my horses. So I might be doing another, like, I don't know, I've been looking at like a 750-mile trail. That would be a lot of fun to, just get some miles with my horses. And I don't know, it's just really great to, be with your horse day in and day out, 24/7, camp with them. I mean, like, the Liberty training is great and I enjoy it and I'll always do it. But I still felt like, something was kind of missing as far as, like, I don't know. I mean, if you think back, through history, I mean, people relied on their horses, and, and so, in today's day and age, we work with them and we put them up, and then we don't see them for, until the next day. And so to be, active member of their herd and riding them for, 10 miles a day or 20 miles a day, and and having them work as a herd, with a pack horse and a ridden horse and a spare horse, or in my case, a spare donkey. That was so I really want to continue to learn and grow in that area as well.
Any more makeovers in your future?
Not at the moment. I don't want to say that I won't do another one, because I've done one almost every year since I think, it's been over 10 years now. But I really want to focus on, because I do always sell my best horses. And for me, I think that's been the hardest part of the makeovers. It's great getting them adopted into new homes, but then I don't focus on mine. So I really want to get, a team of horses and going. I want to focus more on learning how to finish horses. I feel like I have a really good understanding of how, like, the first 100 days goes. But to work on the Beyond would be really cool, because that's just something, because I'm always starting over, which is an amazing process in itself. Like, I feel really fortunate that I've, feel so comfortable, gentling so many Mustangs. I mean, probably at this point, yeah, people always ask me how many. I don't know, because I also count, like, if I go and, and mentor somebody, or if I, go and help somebody, but it's got to be close to like 100 wild horses,
Wow.
At this point. And I mean, when I was in New Zealand, I've worked, helped with that workshop, and worked with, I think we had over a dozen horses there. So, those aren't Mustangs, and those are still wild horses. Yeah, no, it's been, just incredible learning about the wild horses. And I've also spent some time studying wild horse behavior in Australia with the wild Brumbies. My friend invited me to, research, when she was researching for her book, to study horses in Portugal, wild horses there, which was really a neat opportunity. And I've gone to the prior horses. I haven't spent a lot of time with them, but that's a herd in Montana. And I did go to a sulfur roundup, which, yeah, I did end up, it was really cool. I actually did adopt a horse from the roundup that I saw get rounded up. So that was amazing that I was able to track him down and find him and adopt him. I did end up making the hard decision to place him in a home, but it's an amazing home, and I keep in contact. So I don't know, like, all these Mustangs, I still consider them my Mustangs, because, like, I get so attached to all of them. So that's why when it's like, oh, how many Mustangs do you have? Like, even if they're not in my herd, like, they're still in my heart. So yeah.
So if there's somebody out there who doesn't have a lot of horse training experience but wants to adopt a Mustang, what kind of advice would you have for them?
So my biggest advice, I think, would be to find a mentor. I mean, mentors, even though I had really good success and luck in the beginning, which I've even had someone say, hey, you should share your story, because that's probably not how it's going to go for most people. And I'm like, well, I don't know. Like, I feel like if anybody puts the time and effort into learning something, you can do it. It just depends on how dedicated you are. At the same time, even though I was really fortunate in that I put in the time and dedication, and I had some really amazing horses, I still hit a really, like, year and a half time where I was really struggling, getting 3 really tough horses. And I mean, my mentors totally changed, everything for me in the most positive ways. So, and the Mustang community is so amazing, too, because everyone is so supportive, and of course you get, some people, that maybe don't fit in the general criteria, but for the most part, everybody really wants to just help the Mustangs and help others, because it is such a, I don't know, I just think it's so unique in that, for the most part, most people are doing a lot of the training themselves. And if they aren't doing the training themselves, they're working with somebody to better themselves. So I think that's something that's really unique. And I'm super supportive of getting help, and, just doing whatever it takes to help these horses get adopted into good homes.
Okay. Well, thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it. And I'm sure people are going to want to follow your progress. Where can they go to follow you?
So I'm on Facebook and Instagram. My Facebook page is Hannah Catalino Liberty Horsemanship. And I think my Instagram is Hannah Catalino. So those are the 2 places where people can follow along. I mean, the big thing right now is getting my sulfur team going, and, playing a little bit of Liberty, and, with some of the other Mustangs and burros and mule. So that's kind of the future.
Okay. Well, thanks so much, Hannah, and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Bye.